Good morning from Raoul's house. Yes, so where are we today? Well, I can tell you where we are. I'm going to take a week out because socially I've got some things to do, and also I need my tools for another job. So now, having worked in the motor trade, worked on lots of cars and vans, you learn that when you tackle one job, it invariably leads to one you had not expected, and that's the case here. So part 3 of my wall lights will have to wait a week, and I think that seems fair enough because I need to let this plaster really set and, you know, dry out. And unfortunately yesterday, as I suspected, this light switch channel with the conduit in it, don't know if I've got it to hand. Yes, I have. Yeah. This stuff, steel stuff, just no way big enough to take 2 cables. In fact, I tried and they are wedged in there. So, scrap. So I'm going to use the plastic stuff, which is a lot wider, and that will take the 2 cables, but I really need to give that a week to go off before I start pushing cables up that conduit, and also need to replace the back box. So I thought today we'll just have a little chat and you know, about various things that I've got to do around the house, and hopefully next week I'll have some action for you. So what we'll do, we'll go and have a look downstairs. This fireplace is going to have to go, and from what I understand about the way these are fixed, they tend to be anchored in the plaster, you know, at various points around the fire and possibly along the top. So to get that out, I am going to have to chip some of the plaster away, and then it should, and I say lean forward, I think I'm going to need to, you know, eat me Weetabix that day and get this fireplace out, because long term I don't want it here, and the hearth takes up a good proportion of the room. It really doesn't need to be that deep, and I'd never be able to fit any kind of carpeting in here until I'd ascertained exactly how the fireplace is going to be. So, you know, but I think realistically it'll be next year into the spring sometime when I can actually start working down here. My priority at the moment is to make the upstairs habitable. And that's what I'm concentrating on at the moment. But I just thought I'd show you this, and you know, some of the work that I've got to do. This is another one where the dado rail, or dado, depends how you like to say it, will have to go. But in doing that, that means more filling with plaster to try and get the floor level again. Also, and I'll need to stand back a bit, I think, there were these double doors between the front and back room, and there are pluses and minuses with it, but I think, to be honest, mostly they're minuses, because if you've got 2 doors like that, you can't put anything in front of it either side, so it's dead space, isn't it? And I think I did think of the idea of making a sort of fixed, well, fill it in, but so that you could, if you wanted to, unbolt it and open it, and I just thought, no, let's just fill this in. The alternative, of course, is to knock right through, and I'm not over keen on that, not really. And it's, let's be honest, it's a lot of major work putting an RSJ in. So I thought, no, I won't do that. So I am going to fill this hole, and it may be stud work, it may be brick, I don't know, it might be breeze block, who knows. But I will have to fill that in at some point. So, you know, these are jobs that are now sort of, well, I'll push them into the future, let's say that. This is something people don't realise about renovating or doing up houses. You have to get rid of stuff, and it costs you money to do it. And yes, you can put a bit in the boot of your car, but when you've got a big part of it to shift, you need a skip. And it's whatever, £250 a time. And we've already had 3 skips, so you know the money soon stacks up. So at the moment I'm not chucking anything, but there will come a point when I go down here when I'll need the skip yet again. So that's the kitchen. Hallway's not too bad, apart from the fact it's got this 3-way switch, which is, I think one does, one does the outside light, this does the downstairs light, and the other one, yeah, does the upstairs light. So, well, that's all right, but that means when you come in, if you think about this, so I've just come in the front door, look how far down I've got to go to get the light switch. So I've decided it needs to go here, so it's a bit nearer. And I've also bought a couple of sensors that detect when you're in the area and the lights come on, and I've got 2 wall lights to go down, yeah, more wall lights to go down here. They're very, very nice lights. I'll perhaps show you those at a later date. But the idea being that if you walk out onto the land in the middle of the light, those wall lights come on. So you don't have the main ceiling lights on, but you do have sufficient lighting to be able to see where you're going at night. That seemed to be a sensible thing. The stair lift. The stair lift is staying, but it will have to come out when I start doing the stairs and stripping all the paper and, you know, all the painting and everything else and getting the staircase done. Then I'll reinstate the stair lift again afterwards. But for now, it's fine where it is. It's not really in my way. Sadly, the stair rail, my sister told me this, was originally varnished pine, or at least the previous owner, prior to me dad or whoever, had originally rubbed all that down and varnished it, and apparently it looked absolutely fantastic. And the only remnant of it is this door frame, and it was like that. Wouldn't that have been great? But my dad decided to get out the gloss and did this to it, which is a great shame. But worse, as you go up the stairs, you notice there's no stair rail. And you know why that is? Well, there is a rail, but there's no pins. Because he decided to build a bookcase here and cut them off. Now I can reinstate them. I can buy timber and I can put them back in. Because one thing I did notice is once this bookcase came out, suddenly the light started to flood in here and you could actually see. So it does need to be open. So I'll have to put those back at some point. Get them cut to the exact size so they match and space them equally. And that will be reinstated then. Yeah. So that light switch that was downstairs, well, the upstairs light switch is there between 2 door frames, and you think, well, why is that like that? It looks odd, doesn't it? And I realised the original light switches in these houses, do you remember those little round brass ones? I don't know, a couple of inches across. That's what the switch was, and that's where it was located. And probably in the 50s sometime, it had a rewire, and not a great rewire, I can tell you. And that switch replaced it. But again, the most sensible place to put it is there, just as you go down the stairs. So that's got to be relocated, but because it's 2-way switching, I've also got to chase down to carry the wire down to that switch down there. So you have to think about all these things and where you're going to route them. So that means, you know, boards have got to come up. So, well, that's the upstairs and that's the downstairs. What else is there? There's not a lot to say about the garden at the moment. It will sort itself, I think, pretty much, because it's quite established. I certainly don't need to worry about that for the coming year. Maybe just a bit of a tidy up. And there's quite an aggressive weed out in that garden that we are going to tackle. Me and my sister and her husband are going to tackle at some point with some weed killer. So we'll give that a go. One of the neat things, and this is something my father built, because you've got all this space above the stairs, he added that. It actually sits on the banister rail. Untidy though it is, I think it's fantastic storage. It's a great use of space, that. It just needs, instead of this flimsy hardboard, it needs a sheet of plasterboard on it and doing properly. So that's the way to tackle that. And put some proper doors on it. And you'd hardly notice it was there, but it makes a functional airing cupboard. In fact, the bottom may need venting, so it's got a constant circulation of air through there. That would seem to make sense. Loft ladder's still where it was. Front bedroom. Well, I'm hoping that I'll get some help in terms of stripping this, because I've already got enough on my plate as it is. But once I've finished my son's room, I will have to tackle this one. You know, I can't leave it like this. I've got to live in it, basically. So the upstairs almost becomes like an upstairs flat until I can tackle the downstairs. So the pressure is on me at the moment to get all these rooms finished. In this room there used to be a water tank. So there are these big pieces of angle iron. It's fairly thick steel. Guess I'm going to have to chip the plaster away and angle grind them at the wall to get rid of those, because I would think that they go right through to next door. So they'll have to go, otherwise I can't utilise this space. And then all these cupboards can come out. And that'll be fun, trying to repair that plaster up there. Look at it, you see. You know, there are various places in this house where it's like this. And I will bet any money that the plaster on this wall is going to have to come off, because it's pretty bad. I'm trying not to think about it, you know what I mean? I've got enough on my plate. But anyway, that's it for this week. I am, as I said, I'm going to let the plaster dry out and then tackle it next week. We should be back up in the loft, part 3 of the wall light saga. And there's a couple of cables up in the loft actually that, honestly, they date back to the 1930s, and it's not the only one I found. I found one on the ground floor, an old rubber cable with a socket on it under the floorboards that was live. The plumber's found that because he actually plugged his radio into it. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff in here still that's got to be stripped out. Still very happy with the central heating system, works brilliantly. My father had a back boiler and a gas fire downstairs, and that's how he kept himself warm. But the problem with that is the gas fire tended to condense on the outside wall and caused it to become damp. And I have cleared the outside to make sure there's no plants against it, and it all does seem to be drying out now. So that's just basically neglect, really. And then I've got that lovely saga of getting this wallpaper off the ceiling yet again. As I say, the best way to do it, without a doubt, garden sprayer, little bit of fairy liquid, little bit of fabric conditioner, warm, very hot water, and spray. Well, not too hot, you're going to singe yourself, but very hot water. Spray it on the paper and leave it a full hour, a whole hour. You need at least that. Just walk away and forget about it. Then come back, give it a quick mist coat, and all of it will come off. Because there were fears that we'd have to plasterboard over these ceilings, but it's all weight on those joists above. And actually, once you get the paper off, the ceilings are not in bad nick. The last thing that happened when I was saying about jobs that go on, was I'd originally said that I was going to leave that pendant there, and I've decided no, I won't. And it's for practical reasons rather than aesthetic. When I actually went in the loft, I have to come a long way across the joist to get to that pendant, whereas if I put it in the middle, I haven't got to go far at all, and I've got a much shorter wiring loom altogether by putting it in the middle. So that's what I'm going to do. So it's got some bonding plaster in it, and then I shall smooth that out, polyfiller it, and that will just vanish. So that's it for today. I'm not intending to post anything for a week. Thank you for watching, and I'll keep you posted once I start again. Thanks.